So let's right. All right. This is what you have to know when it comes to startups. As entrepreneurs or as managers of manager you used as management undergraduates, those who are willing to become managers one day. So basic thing is you have to concept a business idea which is not found by anyone else in the mm, market. So Warren Buffett is a very popular person and known to you. Once he has said that, I will tell you how to become rich. Close doors. Be careful. Be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful. That is true. This is a good insight uh, as management graduates for you all to start your own businesses. So think differently and concept a business idea which others never found in the market, and open a new door to enter the market. That is, you might have learned about blue ocean strategy, right? You have to disrupt others and you can create your own market, what Uber did and what PickMe did. So those are the examples for startups in Sri Lanka. Now, technology plays a vital role when it comes to initiation of startups. So there are so many e-commerce ventures. Let's say starting from very popular. There's what is the very popular e-commerce venture in Sri Lanka? Tell me, someone. Recently, there was a small problem with this COVID-19 uh, pandemic. What was that venture? Kapruka, good. So Kapruka.com. So very popular e-commerce venture in Sri Lanka, and there are some other e-commerce ventures developing. You might surprise. There are so many fintech companies, finance technology startups in Sri Lanka. Uh, let's so there are pay here. Pay here is one of the examples for fintech startups in Sri Lanka. So it is opening opportunity for people to pay for their goods and services without scratching credit cards and debit cards. So when you go to the market, go to a shop, and when you want to pay from your these electronic cards, it's sometimes very hectic. Sometimes you have to sign uh, 10 times 5 times for receipts, right? So without having this procedure, uh, you might getting a good opportunity from pay here. Without scratching your credit cards and or debit cards, you can pay from this platform. And there is another startup, called ODOC, ODOC, right? So ODOC, right, it is a online platform to meet your doctor. So usually, if you want to meet a doctor, what you do? You make an appointment and then physically you go and meet your doctor. There is no way to meet your doctor online. If you are unable to go there physically, visit the doctor physically, there is no opportunity. You have already paid, and there are some complicated situations may arise. So now let's compare with this COVID-19 pandemic. There were lots of issues faced by people because the inability of the movement. So physical distancing, quarantines, and people have to stay at their homes and self quarantine. So then, if there are patients, they want to meet their doctors, they can't go physically because of this new environment. Therefore, think about this startup ODOC. So if people familiar with this ODOC online software application, mobile application, so it will create opportunities to meet doctor and patient. So those startups, technology based startups, are highly relevant in these days, and people are trying to, whether they like or dislike, the situation force them to use these online platforms. Therefore, there is a good demand in the market for these e-commerce mobile applications. Now, another example, if I tell you, that is there is another mobile application to compare and contrast insurance companies. Now, if you want to obtain a vehicle insurance, usually what you do? You ask from your friends, relatives, and get information. Out of these information, you compare and decide a company to insure your vehicle. Without doing that, sometimes the reliability of information you get can be questioned. Some might say whether those statements and opinions are true enough. It's a question. So then this website, this mobile application, creates opportunity for people to compare and contrast different insurance companies in Sri Lanka and their insurance policies. So then one can easily pick the most suitable insurance company and insurance policy for that person. So I think it is an idea no one has think of. So, but the person who created this mobile application and the website have identified the market opportunity. So this is how usually an entrepreneur thinks. If you have a watermelon, entrepreneur think to make fruit juice from the watermelon, juice from watermelon. So that's how usually an entrepreneur thinks. So when a person start like that and starting a business, there are so many difficulties the person is facing. So major problems are coming from legal backgrounds. How to start the business, how to protect my assets, those can be trademarks, those can be your trade secrets, or those can be your inventions, your machines, newly invented machines, sometimes your business ideas, sometimes your premium customer list. So how to protect these ones. So, and also sometimes when it comes to employee aspect, how to properly control my employees when your laborer, when your employee bring a problem to the company, how you solve the matter without affecting to the entire organization, entire growth of the organization, goodwill of the organization, and the revenue of the organization. So these matters, industrial piece is very important for an organization when achieving success. So if labor conflicts arise very frequently, then that industrial piece of the organization won't retain. Therefore, as a early startup, businesses have to think about these aspects: how to uh, how to start the business, what are the business forms available, that is one aspect, and then how to protect my assets, then third one, how to control my employees. So today what we are going to do is we are going to discuss in detail about these legal backgrounds and what are the laws in Sri Lanka and how to frame your business according to laws of the country, ethically and lawfully. How to conduct a business ethically and lawfully. These two go hand in hand. Now let's talk about let me tell you the outline of the presentation. First, I'm going to explain you what is a startup in brief, and then legal dimensions involved with startups, then selecting a suitable business form for your startup. Then fourthly, I'm going to focus about protecting intellectual assets of your startup, then adopting sustainable business practices. So as a business, you have to, when you're doing a business, you have to responsible for the community, society, and also you have a responsibility towards the environment. Then that responsibility cannot be ignored. And also, as not though you should not think about these environmental responsibilities and the society after you scaled up. At the beginning, you have to start these sustainable business practices. අපි කියනවානේ අශ්වයා ගියාට පස්සේ ස්ථාලේ වහලා වැඩක් නැහැ කියලා ළමයි. එතකොට තිරසාරව තමන්ගේ ව්‍යාපාරික පරිචයන් පවත්වාගෙන යාම සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු මුල් අවස්ථාවේදීම ආරම්භ කරන තරමට වඩාත් හොඳයි. So we are going to talk about what are the laws apply for these sustainable business practices. Then concluding remarks of the lecture. So then what is a startup? Right? So startup, see this picture. So when we're defining a startup, you all might have known these things. Startups are new businesses and those are innovative. Innovative mean different, and there are so many new concepts, new ideas embedded with these businesses. And these startups create new ideas as well as generate new products and new ways of doing things. Now, remember my examples: ODoc, mobile application, then Pay Here, fintech startup, and mobile app developed to compare and contrast insurance companies. See, those are new ways of doing things, not only new products, new ways of doing things. And there are the video I showed you when I was starting the lecture. At the beginning of the lecture, I showed you a small video clip. It's all about what? It's creating paper, production of paper using elephant poop. So it's a new product. No one has think about that before. So startups are always based on new products and new ways of doing things. It can be services and also can be products. But the most important factor is these startups are always in line with innovations, continuous innovations. We call this is agile development. AGILE, agile development. Step by step. It's a process. The development of the business is a process, and step by step, with the feedback of customers, they are innovate. They introduce innovations to their products. Customizing products, some additional improvements to products and services they do one after another based on customer feedback. And these days in Sri Lanka, the highest tendency is when it comes to background of startup, tech companies, technology based companies. So there are so many startups in Sri Lanka. Actually, those startups are creations of our young generation. So they try to think differently, and also that business ideas always get the assistance of technology, tech based startups, technology based startups. And startups mean those businesses are still in the incubation stage. Incubation in the sense the business uh, didn't grow yet, early stage of the business, until there is a time for this business until hatch up. So worth to have a track records until they can compete with larger markets. So startups usually initially they cater small markets directly. They want to approach to larger markets. So little by little they approaching to larger markets. So then why these laws are very important? When you start up your business ethically and lawfully, then it is good, and also it is benefit to the overall business when business is catering larger markets, because then you are secured enough and you know what are the laws of the country, and also then you are totally aware about the legal framework affecting to your business. And when it comes to startups, it's all about initially you're catering to a small market and you testing your model, you're testing your product and services and getting the feedback, and you develop. So the initial developed product is known as prototype. So startups usually, what startups do is developing a prototype, minimum viable product. Those two terminologies are very similar, prototype and MVP, minimum viable product. So that means the is most essential qualities of a product to operate. All the developments you can't do at the initial stage, right? So then initially there are some set of activities, set of functions need to involve with the product for the operation. But little by little, the startup will do modification to the products and services. And must have, minimum viable product is a product with must have qualities. Later on, with the customer feedback, they can develop to nice to have until nice to have qualities of the product. Then when it comes to startup background in Sri Lanka, I could uh, I could find only data from 2016. Afterwards, I couldn't find a proper report for you to give you as a preference. This report shows you interesting information. See, when it comes to Sri Lankan startup environment, who do startups very much, and from which age groups? In between age 20 to 24, there are 16%. And in between 25 to 29, there are 37% young people involved in startups. Right? 25 to 29. Very good. 25 to 29. So see, according to this demographic showing, it depicts young generation of Sri Lanka are more interested in doing businesses, startups. And also, if we dig into the core of the report findings, among those youngers, 49% are bachelors, 11% advanced level. So then others also from different qualifications. So see, majority among youngers, 49% startup holders are those who are having bachelors. So like you, You all are studying for your reading for your degree. So there is a tendency in Sri Lankan university students, among Sri Lankan university students, to start startups. Basically, if we see management faculty, students are highly like to start their own businesses, and the faculty is very much supporting students to continue and start their own businesses. There may be lots of students in your batch, those who still having their own small businesses. So that's a good opportunity. Those who haven't think of it, this may be a good opportunity for to grab a new market, new product, and do something differently with the degree. So saying that, this is a general review of Sri Lankan startup atmosphere. Then these are the recent startups in Sri Lanka. I told you at the beginning, these 4 big brothers, 4 boys, they are the founders of ODoc, right? Online doctor. It's a health tech, medical or medtech, medical and technology medtech startup. It's a e-consulting app. Basically, it's a way of connecting patients with doctors online, right? So you without need to travel and have a consultation at a hospital. So how much this way of consulting a doctor is practical is a question for some occasions, but think of the relevancy of these kinds of apps in pandemic situation, recent pandemic situation. So this is the relevancy and also the applicability, and how how these founders have foresee future market opportunity and demand for these products. Many people are now tend to use online applications. And one thing I want to tell you, now we are moving away from electronic commerce, e-commerce. Now we are moving to a m-commerce, mobile commerce. Most of you still join with us, log in with us using your mobile phones, right? So then now with this COVID-19 pandemic, use of technology has boomed, right? Then comparison of insurance. InsuranceMe.lk. This is the first startup that created an online solution for insurance options in Sri Lanka. So to compare vehicle insurance and then to compare travel insurance. So this will be a good solution for customers when they are comparing insurance companies. Then fintech companies. This is good example for y'all, for finance students. Pay here mobile application. So it's a digital payment system without signing receipts and scratch displays. It's an online solution. Now, this also highly relevant in COVID-19 pandemic thing, because the government has asked, health authorities have asked us to minimize interactions with the papers and people. So then this app will be very useful and highly relevant in modern needs in the market, and people might have joined with these might use these applications very much. So then these Silicon Valley companies, Silicon Valley means those big brothers, Facebook, Google, Apple Incorporation. These companies at the beginning, those were startups. Where these startups began? Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is an area in US. So it is the place which has given birth for these big companies in the world right now. So they started as startups, and now think how ethically and legally they do businesses. Now Facebook, there are some arguments, counter arguments with Google also. When it comes to data protection, your personal data, when you take a selfie and upload on Facebook, then definitely Facebook takes some details from you, right? Not about you, your background people, whether people are happy or not. And they sell that detail. People in Colombo, Vijayarama, and students of University of Sri Javardhanapura are happier than others. So that details they sell to some other companies, those who want it. Why they happy? Likewise, data protection issues are coming. That is basically we can argue from the end how ethical businesses are ethical. So it's another aspect you have to consider. But here we are focusing today only legal aspects. And also Apple Incorporation. So they are targeting premium customers, and they are when it comes to innovations, iCloud, iPhones are brilliant, superb, and they continue and they try to retain their market share in the business world based on their continuous product innovations and how they say protect their products, their assets. Apple, the trademark is worth than the net assets of the company. Value of the trademark is 8 times worth than the total revenue and the total revenue of the company. Facebook trade name is worth than the other assets of the company. Google also said. Then to gain this competitive advantage, they have to always protect their intellectual assets, their innovations, continuous developments that they have made to the product. Those developments they have to protect. They have to, Apple has to have a protection from Samsung. Without, if Samsung has taken it, then the competitive advantage will lose. Facebook also is similar. Then potentials for startups. Startups in the sense, see the picture. You're still scaling up. You're at the beginning. So at the beginning, for startups, there is startups are highly depending on research and innovations. Unlike big brothers, they have grown enough, and big companies, blue chip companies, they have enough finance. But for startups, they don't have much finance, but they have to invest more in research and innovations. That is to develop their product and also provide solutions to problems. Startups are basically providing solutions to problems and disrupting the market sometimes. What Uber did? So usually, if you are hungry, we go to a restaurant or a kade, game kade, and we sit and eat something, right? So if you want to have something outside home, definitely you have to walk. You have to go outside. If it is raining, nothing to do. Either you have to have your own vehicle or else you have to walk by. And then, so what Uber did? Uber disrupted this existing food market and introduced new way of consumption of food. So if it, now if it is raining or sunny, it won't problem for you where you are working, whether you working in the organization or you are outside the organization, doesn't matter. If you are hungry, you can order online. Then Uber driver will bring you stuffs to your doorstep. So the things are much more easy now. And now how restaurants have changed. Usually earlier restaurants, their space, when it comes to space, they have given more space for dining. Now there is less spaces. Design, when businessmen are designing their restaurants, there is less space for dining, and there is, compared to dining space, there is a larger space for these Uber, Pick Me, and takeaways. And their kitchen area also larger than the dining area. Why? Their orders are flying up. How these technology and these new market disruptions have changed the business environments. See, and scalability. Scalability is a ability to grow. Startups definitely those have the ability to grow. How these startups are growing based on continuous innovations. But to grow, they have to comply with laws, as well as they have to protect their assets. If the most valuable assets stolen by someone, then how a business is going to grow? It's difficult. And when it comes to potential of startups, potential to become larger and influential in the market. Now, some startups are more powerful. Some companies are more powerful even to topple governments, right? So businesses sometimes control the world, control countries. So whether the business is large or small doesn't matter, right? Startups at the beginning, very small, but there is ability to grow. They can become influential in the market, as well as one day they can become large in the market. Then what are the challenges for startups? Financial difficulties. Basically, when it comes to financing, there are lots of problems facing by these early startups. So banks are reluctant to give financial assistance in terms of loans for these startups because they are lacking information. Sometimes startups, they don't have financial statements like other big companies, right? Proper records, no, they don't have. Then they can't prove their scalability. They can't, the businessman, startup holder, the small business holder knows possibility of growing the business, but there are no documents to show it. Then banks are more into documents. They are finding documents. If you don't have financial statements, you don't lend. Otherwise, these startups need to have a good relationship with the bank, good relationship, trust. So then basically what I can say is, in relation to startups, definitely they are facing financial difficulties. You self-finance, or you have to find some way to get capital to increase the capital flow to the business. Then lack of information. When it comes to research and development, the enough scientific knowledge, the startup holder, small business holder won't have that information. If you are doing something technology, you have financial knowledge, but you are doing a fine tech company. You don't have enough knowledge about technology. Then what happens? There is a problem. The person who are having good knowledge about technology, that person will demand in the startup. Then the startup will collapse. Technological barriers. So these are lack of infrastructure. Lack of infrastructure, finance, financial support, information, and technology. These three aspects jointly form lack of infrastructure, external factors to grow these startups, and delays in decision making. Right? When you are not having sufficient infrastructure, then that will affect for decision making of the startup, and also take long period to sustain. To grow the business, to scale up the ladder, it takes a significant time. Once you are scaling up, another competitor having lots of money, they will grab your business idea, and what they do, they will develop a competitive product in the market that will affect in for revenue of the startup. Then startup is not strong enough to compete with that big company. They will improve the product better than the startup, and they will sell to the market. So then usually there is a challenge for startups in terms of sustainability. Here the sustainability means the profitability of the uh, startup, and high uncertainty outcomes. So when these startups, they have targets. So these targets sometimes blurred based on certain factors. High uncertainty outcomes when it comes to startups. Then high rates of failures. Gaining market validation is the problem. Sometimes customers have trust on well-known brands. Customers won't attract for these newly introduced brands. Right? Customers will go for Nike. Customers will go for Adidas. Customers will go for well-known brands. But these newly introduced brands, how much they are good, those are good, ignored by customers. They are going behind what? Going behind well-known brands, and also gaining market validation, the reputation, goodwill, right? So these things matters for startups. And from legal aspects, these aspects need to be protected initially, then you are protected in your entire journey. So these challenges, there is another big challenge is ignorance of relevant laws. Many businessmen in Sri Lanka, they don't know about laws in the country, because they, in our legal system, in our education system, there is no law subject in the syllabuses. And also there is the law. Luckily you have some legal subjects in your degree program to have certain, to have knowledge up to certain level. But majority of our citizens, they are unaware of these laws. Basically when it comes to businessmen, startups, they are very good at finance management, financial management. They are very good at people management, resource management, very good. But when it comes to knowledge of law, they are lagging behind. Ignorance of relevant laws. So then our intention is, the core essence of our lecture today is giving you proper insight about relevant laws in relation to startups. So here our legal system, there is a maxim in our legal system, that is ignorance of law is not an excuse. නීතිය නොදැන සිටීම නිදහසට කාරණාවක් නොවේ කියලා කියනවා. එහෙනම් නීතිය කොහේ හරි උගන්වන්න ඕනේ. කොහෙද උගන්වන්නේ? අපේ පාසල් පද්ධතිය තුලත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පද්ධතිය තුලත් නීතිඥවරුන් නැරුණාම කාටවත් නීතිය උගන්වන්නේ නැහැ. යම්කිසි හොඳකට අපේ කළමනාකරන විද්‍යාර්ථයින්ට නීති ඉගෙන ගන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. වෘත්තීමය විභාග සහ මේ උපාධි පාඨමාලාවල කොටසක් විදිහට. But remember, once you have encounter with a legal problem, you can't say, I didn't know about these laws. I didn't aware about these laws. It is not an excuse. Then you have to have a proper legal protection for your startup. You have to protect your business. You do several things to protect your business, but not from legal aspect, because you don't know about laws. අපේ ව්‍යාපාරිකයෝ ගොඩාක් තමන්ගේ ව්‍යාපාරය ආරක්ෂා කරන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා හැම අතින්. ෆයිනෑන්ෂියලි බිස්නස් එක ප්‍රොටෙක්ට් කරනවා. මාකටිං පැත්තනොත් පුළුවන් තරම් මේ ඇඩ්වර්ටයිසිං කරලා බිස්නස් එක ඩෙවලොප් කරන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා. But legal පැත්තෙන් තමන්ගේ බිස්නස් එක ප්‍රොටෙක්ට් කරගන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ නැහැ. So legal dimensions involved with startups are, first thing is, if it is a pyramid, right, the foundation of the pyramid, the founding layer is selecting suitable business form to your startup. What is the most suitable business form? Basically this is the area I am focusing today in this lecture, right? to start for my startup, what is the most suitable business form. Then the other one is protecting intellectual assets of the startup. So as a startup, you might have the businessman might have so many intellectual assets, trademarks, then trade secrets, and also patents, business ideas, customer list, confidential information. So these forms intellectual assets. And as a startup, at the beginning, the entrepreneur needs to know how to protect my intellectual assets. And also finally, adopting sustainable business practices. So how much you earn money doesn't matter. It's worthless if you're not sustainable. You, along with your business success, entrepreneurs need to think about their environmental responsibility. When it comes to sustainable aspect of the business, definitely here we are focusing about environmental laws in the country. There are lots of environmental legislations, statutes in the country, but our businessmen, they are nothing known about these things. So in the process of management, I know this is not a new thing for you all. When we consider management, it's a process. In the management process, there are 4 sub-processes. Sub-processes: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So where these legal things, these laws, at which point startup has to think about these laws at the organizing, in the phase of organizing, in the phase of leading or controlling. There, planning. Initially, startups at the initial stage, while they are concerning about lots of these management principles and concepts, they have to consider about legal background as well. So we'll go to our first phase of the lecture. That is, this is the part I am focusing today. Selecting suitable business form to your startup. Right? So these people get together and they talk about what? This is the nature of my business. To achieve the objective of my business, what would be the most suitable business form? So this man is thinking about what? Imagine this man is an entrepreneur. This man is an entrepreneur. So then this entrepreneur has to think about 3 things when making decision to select a suitable form of business to conduct the activities. In essence, business organizations are about effective combination of 3 things. First thing is, does it facilitate investment in the business? Whatever the business form you are going to select your business, first thing you have to think is whether this form is facilitating for investments, whether it is facilitating to grow capital in my business. මගේ ව්‍යාපාරය ඇතුළේ තියෙන ප්‍රාර්ථනය වර්ධනය කරන්න, ආයෝජන ප්‍රවර්ධනය කරන්න මේ ව්‍යාපාර ආකෘතිය කොයිතරම් දුරට දායක වෙනවද? Secondly, whether the form of business organization mitigates or minimize the risk involved in the venture. So definitely there are lots of risks involved with startups. So then how far your selected business form is going to mitigate those associated risk? So that's another question entrepreneurs need to find an answer. Third one is, does the form of business provide a clear organizational structure? So this organizational structure is very important when controlling and leading the organization. So then, based on your initial business idea and initial way of doing business, think which business structure, which business form will suit to have a clear organizational structure, right? Sometimes in some business forms, those organizational structures embedded in business forms are high cost to they incur high cost on business when maintaining. සමහර ව්‍යාපාර ආකෘතීන් තියෙනවා. ඒ ව්‍යාපාර ආකෘතීන් වල අන්තර්ගත වෙන සංවිධානාත්මක ව්‍යුහය ඉතාම අධික මිලක් වැය කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා ඒ සංවිධානාත්මක ව්‍යුහයන් පවත්වගෙන යන්න. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි කියනවා ආරම්භයේදී ව්‍යාපාරයක් ආරම්භ කරන මුල් අවස්ථාවේදී විශාල මුදලක් නැහැනේ. අපි ඉස්සලා කතා කරානේ challenges අභියෝග ගැන. ඒ අභියෝගයන්ගෙන් එකක් තමයි ව්‍යාපාරයට ප්‍රමාණවත් මුදලක් මූල්‍ය තත්ත්වයක් නැති එක. එතකොට ඒ වගේ තැනකදී එකපාරටම පොදු සමාගමක් විදිහට පබ්ලික් කම්පැනි එකක් විදිහට ව්‍යාපාර කටයුත්ත ආරම්භ කරොත් එතෙන්දි ගැටලුවක් මතුවෙනවා. මොකද පබ්ලික් කම්පැනි එකක තියෙන liabilities වැඩි. වගකීම් වැඩි. ඒතර විශාල වගකීම් ප්‍රමාණයක් සිද්ධ කරන්න වෙනවා සහ ඒ ව්‍යාපාර කියන්නේ පොදු සමාගමේ අනුකූලතාවයන් පවත්වාගෙන යන්න විශාල මුදලක් සමාගමට දාන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ මුදලක් දරා ගන්න මුල් අවස්ථාවේදී ස්ටාර්ට්අප් එකකට බෑ. ඒ නිසා ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙක් මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්න තුනටම මේ ප්‍රශ්න තුනටම හොඳ පිළිතුරු සපය ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම මේ සාධක තුන මත මදනම් වෙලා investment, risk, organizational structures are the three factors an entrepreneur needs to focus when selecting a suitable business form. How far selected business form facilitate investments flow to the business, and how far selected business form is going to minimize risk involved in the business, and also how far this business organizational structure of the selected business form supports to the business. So these things an entrepreneur, this person has to consider. When it comes to Sri Lankan context, there are basically 3 business forms available in Sri Lanka for startups. So there are many, but I have selected a major 3. ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් මම විශේෂයෙන්ම ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙකුට entrepreneur කෙනෙක්ට ව්‍යවසායකයෙකුට අදාළ වෙන ව්‍යාපාර සිදු කරගෙන යාමේ ආකෘතීන් 3 තමයි තෝරගත්තේ මෙතෙන්දී. One is sole proprietorship, second one is partnerships, third one companies. So there are different types of companies, but basically I have selected single shareholder companies, private companies and public companies. What are the business forms available in Sri Lanka for startups? Sole proprietorships, partnerships, companies. Right? Here, why I indicate sole proprietorship and partnerships in purple and companies in black. There is a difference. At the initial stage of the business, I suggest and I prefer entrepreneurs to start as a sole proprietorship or partnership, because there are less cost involved and less formalities. But when it comes to companies, once the business is scaling up in the ladder, little by little, when the business is becoming larger, then they can convert or they can transform as a company, starting as a sole proprietorship, and then little by little, once scaled up, can convert the business as into a company. It can be in the form of single shareholder companies, private companies, or public companies. That is depend on the necessity of the business and the requirement of the resources, right? So then partnerships are also suitable. Initially, for startups, I suggest to initiate most suitable business forms as are sole proprietorships and partnerships. If you have enough capital to meet the formalities of the Companies Act, then companies are good enough. Now, you all are finance students, so in your degree program, if I am not mistaken, in the second year, you have learned about formation of companies and types of companies and those things very in a broader manner. Therefore, in this lesson, I am not going to talk much about companies because you have already that knowledge. So since we are focusing startups, so I prefer the most suitable business form is sole proprietorships and partnerships. So having that idea, startups are, see, incubation stage. Startups are always incubation stage of the business. Didn't the කියන්නේ කුකුල් පැටියා බිත්තරෙන් එළියට ආවා විතරයි. Just hatch off, right? So then මේ කුකුල් පැටියා වගේ තමයි startup එකක් කියන්නේ. See these pictures, it means you still have potential to grow. You have initially got the business idea and you have to, there is a threat from the market, external threats are there. When you have a good and very interesting business idea, then there is a risk involved with the idea. Your competitors, your big companies, big technology companies, big financial companies, so they have lots of money. So then they will steal your business idea and they will develop a product or service better than yours and they will sell to the market. Then customer never think about your product. They are going to the better product in the market. And they go for mass production. Big companies, they go for mass production with least cost. And you have only small, very, what I can say, you don't have enough money to develop your product, then your product is expensive. Customers won't buy your product. Customer will go for mass production, the product for the least price. So see how danger is. Then what initially you have to do? You have to protect your business idea. If you are producing something, the production mechanism need to be protected. Manufacturing procedure need to be protected initially. Then you are safe, right? First, when you are doing business, always be strategic as well as be very strategic from legal aspect as well. Always try to protect yourself first. Protect yourself and the business. So let's go talk about sole proprietorship. I'm not going to talk about much in detail because these things you might have learned in business studies. In your A levels also these things, and under corporate law also we have compared and contrasted enough about these sole proprietorships and partnerships. So I'm not going to much in detail about these merits and demerits. I'm focusing the registration procedure because in the second year we haven't much focused on that registration procedure. So I invite you all to I'll give the presentation after I wound up the session. Read these merits and demerits, right? And then when it comes to partnerships, right? So I will give you a little explanation about sole proprietorships. Sole proprietors are look at this picture. Man of the match. You are the controller as well as owner of the business. You manage the business, you control the business, and you owns the business. You're the sole decision maker. So then sole proprietor is the person who doing the business by his or her own. And there are very less legal cost as well as few formal business requirements for sole proprietorships. That's why I told you it is very easy to start a business as a sole proprietorship. But remember, there are demerits. In sole proprietorship, you and your business both are same. There is no difference between you and the business. Therefore, unlimited liability can be saved. If there is any dues from the business, you have to responsible from your personal assets. ව්‍යාපාරයට ගෙවා ගන්න බැරි වුණොත් මුදල් ප්‍රමාණයක් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒ ණය පියවන්න තමන්ගේ පෞද්ගලික දේපල වුණත් යොදවන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. And also there is no separate legal personality. Now you already know when you incorporate a company, you are getting a separate legal personality. වෙනම නෛතික පුද්ගල භාවයක් ලැබෙනවා. එතකොට මොකක්ද ඒකේ ප්‍රතිඵලය? සමාගමට විරුද්ධව නඩු පවරන්නත් පුළුවන්, සමාගමට තමන්ගේ නමින් නඩු පවරන්නත් පුළුවන්. Can sue against the company, and also company can sue another person using company name. Simply. So remember, under sole proprietorship, sole proprietor won't get limited liability and separate legal personality. Despite of all these, what sole proprietor gets? He gets unlimited liability. When it comes to realization of debts, the sole proprietor has to responsible even from personal assets. And remember, I told you there is less formalities. There are less formalities. There is only one legal requirement for sole proprietorships, that is registration of the business name. Registration of the business name. That is the only formal requirement. There is no separate legal personality. There is no unlimited limited liability. There is only one thing sole proprietors get, that is business name. So in this lesson, I am going to focus much on business names registration. ව්‍යාපාරේ නම ලියාපදිංචි කිරීමක් විතරයි තනි පුද්ගල ව්‍යාපාරිකයෙකුට කරන්න පුළුවන්. මතක තියාගන්න, නම ලියාපදිංචි කිරීමේදී කොහෙත්ම ව්‍යාපාරිකයාට ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ වෙනම නෛතික පුද්ගල භාවයක් හෝ සීමාන්තික වගකීමක්. අසීමිත වගකීමක් තමයි පවතින්නේ. පැහැදිලිද? Then partnerships. Partnerships mean a few friends or relatives join together and jointly doing a business. Partnerships mean when 2 or 3 people join together and conducting a business with the view of a profit. In Sri Lanka, for partnerships, Partnership Act of 1890 is applicable. So section 1 of the Partnership Act defines what is a partnership. That is, partnership is a relation which subsists between persons carrying on a business in common with the view of profit. ලාභ ඉපැයීමේ අරමුණ පදනම් කරගෙන පුද්ගලයන් කිහිප දෙනෙක් එකට එකතු වෙලා සිද්ධ කරගෙන යන ව්‍යාපාරයකට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයක් කියලා. So there are few formalities in establishing a partnership. Section 519 of the Companies Act. The Companies Act says minimum number of partners can be seen in a partnership. Can someone tell me what is the minimum number and maximum number of partners could exist in a partnership? You all are not new to me. I remember this batch. You can talk, huh? Don't respond to me from chat box. You unmute and talk with me. I can see. Who is this 16080? Talk, please talk.
Yes, madam.
Hmm?
Hello.
Yes,
They are
2 and 20.
2 and 20. Yes.
Thank you very much. What's your name, please?
Dasuni.
Okay. So your answer is correct. 2 and 20. Minimum number is 2 and maximum number is 20. Now tell me, this is a good opportunity for me to verify whether you all studied company law in the second year or not. Studied in the sense, right? At what instances this maximum number could exist according to Companies Act? හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයක උපරිම සීමාව අපි කියනවානේ 20 දෙනෙක් කියන. මේ 20 සීමාව ඉක්මවා යන්න පුළුවන් අවස්ථා මොනවද? Professionals. When professionals doing engage in a partnership, chartered accountants, lawyers, right? When they can be chartered accountants as well as management accountants. So when they jointly carrying out a professional business, professional in the sense as the law firm or accountancy firm, so in that case, they can exceed more than 20 limit. Other than that, generally, in a partnership, minimum number is 20 and maximum number is 2, maximum number is 20. Then section 18 of the prevention of frauds ordinance. In order to prevent frauds involved in partnerships, it says partnership initial capital of the partnership is more than 1,000 rupees, then the partnership deed should be in writing. Initial capital of the partnership is more than 1,000 rupees, then the partnership deed should be in writing. So generally in Sri Lanka now 1,000 rupees is not a big deal. Therefore most of these partnerships initial capital is more than 1,000 and those agreements, partnership agreement is in writing. Then for the sole proprietorship, in a partnership also, business name, partnership name can be registered. Partnership name can be registered. That also the applicable legislation is Business Names Act number 7 of 1987. So partnership name can be registered. So there are merits and demerits of partnerships. So I invite you to read this, and I want to emphasize two important points. Those are, when it comes to partnerships, uh, again, like sole proprietorships, there is no separate legal personality for partnerships. And also, liability of the partners is also unlimited. In case of realization of debts of the partnership, partners have to responsible from their personal assets in case of assets of the partnerships are not enough. When the assets of the partnerships are not enough, then partners have to responsible for the realization of debts from their personal assets. So there is a risk involved. Why? Uh, here under partnerships also, only partnership name is registered. It doesn't mean that it is getting a separate legal personality. Only under companies, businesses get a separate legal personality and a limited liability. All these first two scenarios, under sole proprietorship and partnerships, businesses get only business name registrations. There is no legal personality. There is only, that is, business names registration is only for legal identification. Business name registration is for legal identification. It doesn't represent legal personality. Remember, this statement will be useful for the exam, right? Business names registration doesn't mean acquisition of legal personality. It is all about legal identification of the business. How to identify the business legally. So let me explain you the procedure of business names registration in Sri Lanka. This is applicable for both the sole proprietorships and partnerships. So what is the legislation? Business Names Act number 7 of 1987. Business Names Act number 7 of 1987. So there are lots of amendments to this legislation. සංශෝධන තියෙනවා වරින් වරට ඉදිරිපත් කරපු, right? මෑත කාලයේදීත් සංශෝධනයක් සිද්ධ වුණා. So according to this legislation, according to Business Names Act, what is a business name? I told you business name registration is only for identification of the business. The name under which sole proprietor or partners collectively carry on business. මොන නම යටතේද තනි පුද්ගල ව්‍යාපාරිකයා හෝ කවුල් ව්‍යාපාරකරුවන් සාමූහිකව මේ ව්‍යාපාරය කරගෙන යන. මොන නම යටතේද? I am Shahani. I am doing a grocery. My grocery's name is Fortune Grocery. I am Shahani. My business is Fortune Grocery. And myself and two other my friends, we jointly doing a restaurant. We are saying Kama Kama. What's myself and two other friends, we jointly doing a partnership, conducting a partnership. We are conducting a restaurant. Name of the restaurant is Kama Kama. So what is the name under which my sole proprietor or partners are carrying the business? In first example, Fortune Grocery, and in the second example, Kama Kama. So those names could be registered, right? Why business name registration is required? To enable members of public, who are members of public, you and I, we people, to enable members of public dealing with a partnership, firm, or in an individual to know all details about the firm and individuals that comprise it. That is why business name registration is a must. That is for the betterment of general public. They can identify. So in my shop, in my grocery, Fortune Grocery, once I register my business name, I am getting a number, right? So that number is displayed in the board, name board. When you obtain the number and go to the local authority, local government, and requested information, they will give all the particulars of the business. Or Shehan is the owner, and this is the address, this and that. So then when the number of there's what was the name I given for this partnership, Kama, right? So when you search from Kama, then they will give you all the details about the partners and the addresses and everything. General public, if you want to sue the partnership, you can get the details from the local authority. Registration must be effected with the register of business. Register of business names. ඉන්නවා මේ ව්‍යාපාර නාම ලියාපදිංචි කිරීම සඳහා පුද්ගලයෙක් රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් වරයෙක්. ඒ රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් වරයා වෙන්නේ ලංකාවේ සමාගම් රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් වරයාමයි. ROC, Register of Companies. සමාගම් ලේකම් වරයාම තමයි ව්‍යාපාර නාම සම්බන්ධයෙන් සමාගම් ලේකම් නෙමෙයි සමාගම් රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් වරයාම තමයි සමාගම් ව්‍යාපාර නාම රෙජිස්ට්‍රාර් වරයා බවට පත් වෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඔහුගේ අනුමැතියත් එක්ක තමයි බලාත්මක භාවය ලැබෙන්නේ ලියාපදිංචි වීම. පනතේ දෙවනි මගන්තිය තුල කියනවා every firm individual carrying on a business under a business name which does not consist of true surnames of all the partners must be registered. This phrase is very important. Which does not consist of true surnames of all partners. සත්‍ය වාසගම් ඇතුළත් කරන්න බෑ. සත්‍ය වාසගම් ඇතුළත් කරන්නේ නැතුව අන්වර්ථ නාමයක් තමයි භාවිතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් මම වික්‍රමසිංහ කියලා ගත්තොත් එහෙම වික්‍රමසිංහලා ගොඩක් ඉන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට එක වික්‍රමසිංහ කෙනෙක්ට එනව දුන්නොත් එහෙම අනිත් වික්‍රමසිංහට ඒක පාවිච්චි කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. නේද? ඒ වගේ partners may use name as the name of the firm provided it is legal. Partners may use any name as the name of the firm. Then Supaya versus Pulliya Pillai. Here, if a legal action brought against a partnership, it must be against all partners by name. දැන් මං කලින් කිව්ව කෑම කියන restaurant එකේ it's a partnership. කෑමට විරුද්ධව නඩු දාන්න බෑ. නඩු දානවා නම් දාන්න ඕනේ හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයකදී එක් හවුල් කරුවාට වෙන වෙනම. එතකොට Aට වෙනම නඩුවේ වගේ උත්තර කරුවෙක් වෙනවා, B වෙනම නඩුවේ වගේ උත්තර කරුවෙක් වෙනවා, C වෙනම වගේ උත්තර කරුවෙක් වෙනවා. විත්ති කරුවෙක් වෙනවා. පැහැදිලිද? එතකොට මේ හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයට විරුද්ධව නඩුව අරගෙන එන්න බෑ. දැන් සමාගමක නම් අපි සමාගමට විරුද්ධව නඩුව අරගෙන එනවනේ. ඒ සමාගමට separate legal personality එකක් තියෙන හින්දා. හැබැයි හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයකදී අපිට ඒක කරන්න බෑ. එක් හවුල් කරුවාට වෙන වෙනම තමයි නඩු පැවරීම සිද්ධ කරන්න ඕනේ. මොකද අපි හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයේ නම විතරයි ලියාපදිංචි කිරීම සිද්ධ කරන්නේ. Then the rationale. Partnerships do not have separate legal personality. Mere business name registration does not enable separate legal person. That's the essence of the above judgment. Then the registration is handled by provincial administration. Remember, according to Business Names Act, it is not governed by central government. අපේ රටේ මධ්‍යම ආණ්ඩුව විසින් නෙමෙයි ව්‍යාපාර නාම කියන විෂය එක ගනුදෙනු කරන්නේ. මධ්‍යම රාජ්‍ය ව්‍යාපාර නාම ලියාපදිංචි කිරීම සම්බන්ධ බලය පළාත් පාලනයට බාර දීලා තියෙනවා. පළාත් සභාවන්ට දීලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඕගොල්ලන්ට තමන්ගේ ව්‍යාපාරය නම රෙජිස්ටර් කරන්න ඕන නම් sole proprietorship එකක් විදියට හරි හවුල් ව්‍යාපාරයක් විදියට හරි යන්න ඕනේ කොතෙන්ද? තමන්ගේ පළාත් සභාවට. කොළඹ පිහිටි ව්‍යාපාරයක් නම් බස්නාහිර පළාත් සභාවට ගාල්ල පිහිටි ව්‍යාපාරයක් නම් දකුණු පළාත් සභාවට යන්න ඕන. Because that power, business names registration, is handled by provincial administration. Right? Section 5 of the Act. Now, for example, before that, I will tell you for the Western Province, there is a separate website for business names department under Western Province Provincial Council. Under Western Provincial Council, there is a separate department for business names registration, and they are maintaining a website. So if you Google it, you can find it. But for other provinces, we can't see such a thing. But business name registration is taking place from provincial wise. According to Section 5, registration must contain business name, then the general nature of the business, what kind of business it is. It is a grocery, or it is a salon, or it is a butcher, or it is a supermarket, or if it is a professional service or education, whatever the nature of the business need to be indicated. The principal place of business, where the business is conducting, the location, and the address of any branch office, all these things need to be properly indicated. Then nationality of individuals in the firm, their residential addresses and occupation. Then if there is any change in these particulars in the sense business name, general nature of the business, principal place of business, and any other details about branches, if there is any change in these particulars, such change must also similarly re-register such changes. Once you change one of these, you have to go and inform the provincial council. There is a separate officer in charge of business names registration, so you have to re-register in the sense the fee is different, small amount, somewhere less amount you have to pay. Then penalties for non-compliance and for false statements. If you have made any false statements at the registration, then there are penalties for that. You have to comply with the Business Names Act. If you are not complying, then there are penalties. Registering, that means small amount to compensate, small amount to pay as a compensation. Then registering authority is empowered to refuse to register any misleading names. If your business name is misleading general public, right? So then Prabhakaran කියලා දැම්මොත් දැන් කෑම කඩවල දානවනේ ළමයි කරපිංචා, right? මේ විජේරාමේ මම ළඟදී දැක්කා කරපිංචා කියලා. දැන් ගොටුකොළ කියලාත් ඒත් දන්නේ ළඟදී නේ. සූදුරු මහදුරුත් ඒත් දන්නේ ළමයි. ගමරාල, මිස්ටර් ගමරාල. So I'm just giving you few funny examples. ලුණු මිරිස, කටට රහට. Now it has interesting names coming for these කෑම කඩස්. So imagine if the your name is misleading, surnames cannot be used as business names. And if your name is for the misleading, then the authority, local provincial council, respective authority for the registration of business name, they can refuse to register. Then the registration search is there. Any member of public can, on the payment of a nominal prescribed fee, can inspect this business names registration in the provincial council, whether there is any similar names. Then section 9, if any changes occur in particulars registered after initial registration, if the content of the information requested by the provincial council has changed, then that change need to be informed to the provincial council back within 30 days. It should be notified within 30 days. And here, what is ROBN? Registrar of Business Names. Registrar of Business Names issue a certificate of registration, and it should be exhibit in the conspicuous place. Conspicuous. හොඳට පේන තැනක. Position at its principal place of business. දැන් ගොඩාක් ව්‍යාපාර ඔයගොල්ලන් දැකලා ඇති salons ළඟට ඔය කොණ්ඩේ කපන තැන් නේද පිරිමි ළමයි. හරිද? මේ ඔයගොල්ලන් ඒකට කියන්නේ මොනවද? That also salon ne? They are showing the business name registration to show that we are legally recognized. It is good enough to improve the overall business personality of the startup. Then if the notice is not displaying, then there are penalties. In practice, provincial councils and divisional secretaries divisions are also responsible for business names registrations. Provincial councils and divisional secretaries. පළාත් සභාව වෙනුවෙන් එක කරගෙන යන්න දිසා ලේකම් කාර්යාලය. Then depends on bylaws. That means that these are the laws we generally identify. I drafted these things based on Western Province business names registration bylaws. Bylaws mean laws enacted by provincial councils. Those are bylaws. Then the government central government has given the authority for business names registrations for provincial councils. Then there can be minor changes in each and every provinces. Then Provincial Department of Business Names Registration of Western Province, you can go to this link, right? Then for sole proprietors, there is a different form called BNR Form 1, Business Names Registration Form 1. And for partnerships, BNR Form 2. Documents to prove business nature. These are the documents need to present for the registration. It can be a sole proprietor or else partnership. So these are the documents. Documents to prove business nature. Police certificate. If you are doing a salon or spa or something, then police station needs to give a certificate. And from Department of Health, then the professional, if you are doing a educational institute, tuition classes for professional exams, then that approval from professional institutions need to provide to certify the business nature. Then Grama Niladhari report. Grama Niladhari report for what? It should be signed by a relevant divisional secretary, and also that is this person is in this area and doing this kind of business. Then copy of your national identity card. Then documents to prove location of the business, right? Copies of the deed. If you are conducting the business at your own place, then copy of the deed. If you are doing the business in a in a place that you rented, so then the lease agreement and the mortgage agreement. If you are doing your business of another person's place and without paying anything but under the consent of that person, then the consent letter should be provided. Then deed of partnership if available. So if initial capital is more than 1,000, then the partnership deed should be in writing. So that need to be presented when applying for business names registration. These are general things. There can be minor and major deviations based on your provincial council bylaws. Other circumstantial documents registrar requires. Who is the business names registrar? Same company's registrar. සමාගම් ලේකම්වරයාම තමයි ව්‍යාපාර නාම ලේකම්වරයා බවට පත් වෙන්නේ. So generally within 14 days from startup, you have to go for business name registration, and you are getting if you get a written approval, then you are having another 1 month, 30 days to register your business name. Then if you are getting late, you have to responsible for late fees. This is the general fee structure. This also could be changed based on your bylaws, based on provincial council bylaws. initial capital of the startup is up to 3 lakhs, then 500 rupees for the application. And initial capital between 3 lakhs and 1 rupee and 5 lakhs 1000. Then initial capital above 5 lakhs 2500 rupees. Certificate of registration is issued. So once you register your business name, you're getting a certificate of registration. That certificate of registration is only for, you can use only for the purpose of business identification of the business. So it is issued within 5 working days. So it is depend on the punctuality of the separate provincial councils. So at the scaling up stage, you can go for companies. So this is the end of the lecture. Here I focused much about sole proprietorships and partnerships because those two business forms are highly relevant in the context of early startups. So, and this is quite few steps ahead from what we have discussed under corporate law in our second year. Here I have given more emphasis for business names registrations, how a partnership name can be registered and how a sole proprietor name can be registered. So then we have spoken a lot of things about startups. What are the position of startups in Sri Lanka? And also we have discussed few startups and especially the relevancy of fintech, finance and technology startups, these things. And it's this will be the end of the lecture. So this is the time for you all to ask any question. Don't you have any questions? All of you understood or sufficiently confused? Hmm? Yashwin, Jayaraman, Yashwin, don't you have any questions?
No,
Others?
ma'am.
No.
No.
The others, I can see only your CPM numbers, so I can't name you all. Students, don't you have any questions? Do you think the lecture is helpful for y'all? What's your opinion? Give me a feedback, otherwise I don't know. මොකද ළමයි පාඩම තේරුම් නැද්ද? Are there any disadvantages of starting as a sole proprietorship partnership compared to private limited companies in a legal context? Yes, I emphasized in the lecture as well, because if you start the business as a company, you definitely getting a separate legal personality and limited liability. You and the business are two things. You are not responsible for what business does, and business doesn't responsible what you do. And then when it comes to separate legal personality, you and the business are distinct and separate. But under sole proprietor and partnership, disadvantage is the business names registration is limited only for legal identification, but you are not getting any separate legal personality or limited liability. So that risky legal risks are involved. Good question. But I wonder, I explained these things in the lecture. Then are there separate law for SMEs? No, these laws are applicable. There is no separate law for SMEs. What are the legal remedies for reduce startup failures? Good question. When it comes to failures, the remedy depends on the nature of the failure. If there can be different failures. There can be financial failures. If any fraud is involved with the failure, so it will govern under criminal law, right? So if there is anything involved, the cause for failure is employee governance or labor related matter, so it can be governed by labor law. If it is asset mismanagement, again it is under criminal law. And then actually the legal remedy depends on nature of the failure. I can't give you a hard and fast rule. Actually it is circumstantial. So once you go for legal remedies, then at that point you have to definitely get the consultation of attorney at law, because it is something after this any violation happen. So what I have focused today is when you're starting the business, when you're concepting the business idea, these are the laws you have to adhere. Are there any new insights of law brings from COVID-19? Actually, there are no recent legal amendments in the law, no recent legal amendments with COVID-19, but these amendments we can't bring overnight. It's a methodical and systematic process. Therefore, it takes some time to bring amendments for these legislations. But initially, these laws are basically to facilitate businesses. Businesses can easily adapt to COVID-19, but our legal system is not much as there are no legal barriers actually preventing growth of businesses under with the effect of COVID-19. That's the thing. There are no legal barriers for businesses to adapt COVID-19. Therefore, I think your question is not much clear for me. Hope you got an answer. Are there any particular laws for medical related startups like pharmacy or medical devices importations that you know of? When it comes to medical related startups, generally the laws that we have discussed right now for the registration and all these laws are applicable. But if I talk about more than that, so this is a importation. You are importing medical devices and pharmaceuticals, then our export laws are applicable. What are the items that you can import, and then there are some limitations. Importations laws on exports and imports need to be recognized. Customs ordinance, Then what else? Medical legislations are not there, but when you consider the nature of the business, there are some other legislations applicable too. So basically, since your business is involved with imports, you have to be much concerned about our exchange control laws. And also, when it's come to medical devices and pharmaceuticals, you also have to comply with consumer standards. Sale of goods, right? Then consumer protection authority, how you are going to protect your consumers, right? So that aspect is coming. Sale of goods and law relating to sale of goods, and consumer protection laws are applicable when it comes to domestic aspect, when domestic market manipulation. But when you are importing, from that point, exchange control laws are applicable, and customs ordinance, just not much relevant, but you can consider. Is that all? Don't you have good questions? Hope give me a little feedback. I want to know whether you all understood the lesson or not. Okay, then I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for your participation. I will give the recording of the lecture to Ms. Ama. She will upload in the LMS. Thank you very much for your participation. Good night.